Hi friends, I'm Tati. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my January wrap-up. I read 11 books in the month of January. Most of them are rereads because I have this thing where usually in January I will reread a bunch of books just as a way to start off the year on a really fantastic note. It's just a way to like make sure that the year starts with good vibes. I reread a bunch of books, but only 2 new books. So this video might be a little bit shorter, but also I can never shut up, so who knows. Let's get started. The first book that I read in January was Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars again. I loved it even more on a second reread, and I actually tabbed and annotated this time. I love this story. This takes place in the year 2575 and it sets around the invasion of an illegal mining colony, and it is so good. It is YA, and the main characters are Katie and Ezra, and they are fantastic. So they go from like lovers to antagonists, I would like to say, because they weren't enemies. They were just like going through a rough patch, and then back to lovers at the end of the book. Their relationship is so cute, so wholesome. I love them so much, and they like adore each other so much that my heart. And like they have to go through so much adversity. Both of them nearly die at several points. I really love this book. The story is fantastic. The character development is so good. If you've heard me talk about this book before, you've heard me talk at length about the mixed medium of the book. It is told through text and chats and video footage that is retold, and it is so good. One of the things that I absolutely adore about this book and the series in general is how the authors are able to create characters through text conversations, because usually with characters you have to see their actions and their way of thinking in order to be able to get to know them as characters, but with these you only get to know them through their text conversations and their actions and the ways that they speak. But it's so well done that you have such interesting, well-rounded, 3-dimensional characters by the end, and I absolutely love that. The second book that I finished in January was City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. This was for our monthly live show. This was our last Shadowhunters live show for a while. We're gonna take a break and we're gonna read other books for our live shows, but the live shows will continue even though we're not gonna be doing Cassandra Clare for a while. I actually really like this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I do have my critiques. This was unnecessarily long, like ridiculously long. A lot of what happened here could have been cut out and it would have been fine. It would have still made an equal amount of sense. There were some great character moments in this. I really think Cassandra Clare should have focused more on the characters rather than the plot, because the plot of her books make no sense, but her character moments are actually pretty decent. Hated Jace. He was a total buffoon in this book. I actually quite liked Clary in this book. She has definitely matured. She's not throwing herself into stupid situations anymore. If she is in stupid situations, it's usually because Jace is pushing her into them. Issy and Simon were pretty great in this book, although the cop-out of Simon at the end was kind of stupid. And Alec and Magnus were excellent as always, and Alec really grew into his own in this book, and he was starting to become the legendary leader that would change the Shadow World, so really appreciated that. I actually liked him a lot more in this book than I have in like most of the series. So that's on that. Magnus is still excellent. No notes. No notes for Magnus. He's still perfect. He's still excellent. 4 out of 5 stars. I actually really enjoyed this, even though it was ridiculously long. It did not need to be this long. The next book that I finished in January was The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Mika gave me for Christmas the new editions of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. So I was already planning on rereading this in January, but new editions to annotate, so this was even more of like an incentive to read them. 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. I had forgotten how comforting it was to sink back into Rick Riordan's writing, because his writing style is very simple, straight and to the point, but it's still so good, and he has a talent for like building this world and merging modernity with mythology that I just like, I love. It's been like 3 years since I reread the series. I try to reread it like every 2 years or something like that, but it's been a while, and I'd forgotten how much I love just like sinking into his writing. This was an excellent experience. Getting to meet dumbass 12-year-old Percy again was excellent. Annabeth is still a queen, and this entire book was just an entire mood. I loved it. The next book I finished in January was Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This wasn't actually something that I was planning on rereading. It was just that Mika was reading it and she was tweeting about it, and I decided that I wanted to reread it. 5 out of 5 stars, really excellent. Love the additions of the new characters of Nick Malikov, Ella Malikova, and Hannah Donnelly. They were excellent. As usual, the character progression is excellent. The plot is really, really good, although I get creeped out by the lamina all the time. All in all, this book was really, really good, and I just really like this series. Like, I love this series. The next book that I finished in January was Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Nouvel. This book came into my hands because everybody at the beginning of January, end of December, was doing the whole thing on Twitter of like 12 books by 12 friends recommendations type thing. I posted that on my Twitter, and this was actually recommended by Sammy. I was gonna do this in February because she was the second person to respond to the tweet, but the one that was recommended for January was a series that I wanted to read like back to back to back, and I wanted to vlog it. So I didn't really want to do that in January, but I started this without knowing it was a series. And then I found out halfway through the book, and it was just too late to go back by then. So I read this now, and I will probably reread it later in the year in order to be able to finish the entire series because it was really, really good. This was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. This is a sci-fi novel. It is adult, and it centers around this group of people that find all these like giant metal body parts stashed around Earth, and they are meant to form like this freaking giant robot, and that has been left behind by ancient civilizations. And it is ridiculously good. Like the Illuminae files, these are called the Themis files, and the entire book is told through files, which I really, really like. It's not as a mixed medium as Illuminae. It's mostly just told through interviews and personal journal, but it's still really, really good. I listened to this on audio, which I kind of regret doing. I think my reading experience would have been much better if I'd read it physically or through an ebook as opposed to through the audiobook. Although the audiobook was really, really good, I have to say. It was a full cast, so it was really good, and I could easily keep track of who was talking. But I think that for my reread later in the year, when I read the entire series, I am just gonna physically read them as opposed to listening to the audiobooks. But this was still really, really good. Next book that I finished in January was The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. This was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. This is not my favorite book in the series. I think it's kind of slow, a little bit ridiculous, and Rick Riordan does this thing in his writing that a lot of conflicts start at the beginning of a chapter and they end by the end of the chapter. And usually I don't notice that, but with this book it was really, really evident, and I didn't love it. But still, it was a 4 out of 5 stars. It was still excellent. The character progressions were still excellent. Getting to see Percy and Annabeth's friendship grow was really nice, especially because they went on this quest by themselves. I mean, they had Tyson with them, but kind of lose them along the way, so they spend a lot of time by themselves, and getting to see their relationship grow and their friendship evolve was really nice. It was a good book. It's just not my favorite in the series. The next book that I finished in January was A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I did not reread A Court of Thorns and Roses first. I went into this reread like straight in, did not even bother to reread ACOTAR first. I was just like, give me Rhys and Farah, give me Rhys, give me The Inner Circle. I don't care for reading ACOTAR because I find Tamlin bland as fuck and also abusive, so did not want to deal with that. This was still a 5 out of 5 stars, just like it was the first time, and it was so good. I listened to the audiobook again, and it was so ridiculously good. Look, I love Rhys. I'm a bitch for Rhys. And Fair's pretty great also, and I just live for The Inner Circle. This also happened because Skylar was rereading ACOTAR, and she was tweeting about it and putting up updates on Goodreads, and I was just like, you know what? I need to reread Akamath. That's what I need to do with my time, and so I did. Next book I finished was The Titan's Curse by Rick Riordan. This is the third book in the Percy Jackson series. Talia is introduced in this. This was a 5 out of 5 for me. Talia is introduced in this, and you know what? When I was younger, I thought that I wanted to be Talia. It turns out I just wanted to date Talia, but also I kind of wanted to be her. And also Nico is introduced with him, and I love him so much, my poor baby boy. Percy continues to be a clueless dumbass in this. He spends the entire time trying to save Annabeth without knowing why he wants to save Annabeth so badly. He just thinks, oh, she's my best friend. No, dumbass. To the point that when he meets Aphrodite in this book, he says, oh, she kind of looks like Annabeth, and that doesn't ring any alarm bells in his head. Like, oh, my poor oblivious king. Like, dude, come on, get it through. 5 out of 5. The quest on this was excellent. Zoe Nightshade was a whole ass mood, and this book was just really, really good. This is where I got into my stride. So the next book I finished in January was The Battle of the Labyrinth by Rick Riordan. In an earlier review, I think it was in my review of Sea of Monsters that I posted on Goodreads, that I said that odd-numbered books in the series weren't my favorite. I don't know who said that, because it definitely wasn't me, because I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars because it was really fucking good. Clearly, I don't know shit about shit, because I forgot that Percy and Annabeth had their first kiss in this book. I forgot that Calypso was a character that was introduced in this book. I forgot that Rachel Elizabeth Dare was a character that was introduced in this book. I forgot, like, basically the entire book. So whoever said that this wasn't my favorite book, clearly she was lying, because it was not me. I loved the unpredictability that the maze posed, because suddenly they could be walking through the maze for an hour and end up in California when they started out in New York. It was really great, and I loved that it was just like an unpredictable thing. And I also love that Percy is made to confront some of the less unsavory things that the gods and their children have done, from imprisoning Calypso to when Percy meets Antaeus in the labyrinth and he sees like this whole shrine that he has built to Poseidon. So Percy is really made to confront like the actions of the gods in this, which I thought was really good, especially in preparation for the last Olympian, which would be like his greatest challenge. I couldn't help myself afterwards, and I just immediately finished The Last Olympian by Rick Riordan. It was a 5 out of 5 stars. If you do not know, this is my favorite book in the series. This is the war book. Definitely. You've had battles and fights and skirmishes throughout the entire series, but this is the war book. The entire book is dedicated to the siege on Manhattan, and I love it. One thing that I absolutely adore about this book is the sleeping spell that is placed over the entire city. I thought that was such a creative way of being able to use New York as your battleground without having to worry about mortals and people seeing you and getting in the way and mass casualties. I thought that was super creative and well done. The progression in this book is excellent, from Percy having to bathe in the Styx to become invulnerable, to his progression with Annabeth, to that like well-known kiss at the end of the book. It was just really good, and like Percy's final wish from the gods of having them claim all their children was perfection. Perfection. Final book that I finished in January was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This was a reread, and it was for my feminist theory class that I'm taking this semester. And look, I generally don't rate things that I read for university, but my fingers kind of slipped and I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars because it was so fucking good. Look, I love this book. I am a soft bitch for this book. The first time I read it was in 2019. I was just finishing my undergrad and I had to read this for my Jane Austen class, and I had to reread it now, and I had forgotten how good this book is. And the fact that the book is told in third person, which I absolutely love, and a lot is told from Darcy's perspective of how he's falling in love with Elizabeth. I'd forgotten about that, and Darcy is like the original simp. Like, this man is head over heels for Elizabeth, just like not understanding why. This was really fucking good. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. The romance, the enemies to lovers, the banter, Lydia sucking. I gotta say, a lot of the characters in this book suck. Lydia sucks. Mr. and Mrs. Bennet are not great. I like Mr. Bennet a little bit more, but he's still not great. He's a terrible father, and Mrs. Bennet is a terrible mother. But still, Elizabeth is excellent. Darcy is excellent. Jane is excellent. Bingley is excellent. This book, I really, really like this book. 5 out of 5 stars for me. That has been the massive pile of books that I read in January. I read 11 books to start the year. If you told 2020 Tati that she was gonna be reading 11 books on the regular, she would have not believed you. Because last January, I read a total of 3 books. But you know, progress, growth. I feel like in this video, I just spent a lot of time saying that everything was really good. And that would be correct. But the thing is, for me, that's what January is supposed to be. You're setting up a whole new reading year, and I want to start the year saying that holy shit, everything I read was really fucking good. So then I can go on to read new stories and new things and things that might not be as good but could be just as good. This month made me happy. I read a lot of good shit this month. Thank you for spending this time with me. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Come yell at me in the comments. Be sure to support your local indie bookstore. I've been Tati, and I will see you on the next one. Okay, bye!